Cool. Well, what's next for ARI? What's coming?
So what have we done in the past 3 to 5 years is we've been preparing for, I didn't know if I would buy it until 3 years ago. I made a proposal and I went through a 3-year. It was as enjoyable as you would imagine a buyout should be. And it took about 2 to 3 years to kind of get to it. So what we've been working is we restructured to where we're value driven, to where we have 5 values. And we've been getting our team on, I talk about, do they get it? Do they want to have the capacity to do it? We've been working on transitioning that because we want to truly double down on our food retail institution. And we want to be about 30% national brands, 30% regional brands, and 30% project-based. And we just, can I brag?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Absolutely.
We ran a project for Whole Foods. I ran it a year and a half ago, and it went really, really well. And a Costco manager in Florida asked a Whole Foods VP in Chicago, who should they talk to in Oklahoma? Whole Foods gave Costco our name, and we got a year trial warranty with some projects. And then Costco just told us they're the best we're the best company they have ever worked with in 17 years.
Oh,
awesome.
wow.
That's cool. Yeah.
And so we're going to get Costco, and then we're going to work with Walmart is going like everybody else. The future for food retail and medicine is it's all going natural refrigerants. And so I got on the board for the North American Natural Refrigerant, and where everything's going glycol, CO2, or propane in the next 20, 25 years on food retail. So Walmart's doing a 14-year program where they're going to transition every one of their stores in the country to either CO2, glycol, or propane. That's 141 projects a day for 14 years.
That's crazy.
So we have lots of opportunity in food retail. And so what we're planning to do in the next 3 to 5 years is we want to leverage EMS. We want to expand our energy management and controls division for us. For service side, I don't want to take on too many large brands. I want and I've learned the hard way is I've said yes the first 3 years to everybody. And when you say yes to really, 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 really large partners and companies, well, those really, really large partners make decisions too.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you're like, I want to make sure that I have a balanced portfolio to protect. And so the next 3 to 5 years, we want to make sure that we're at Northwest Arkansas to North Dallas.
Awesome.
And we want to be refrigeration, commercial HVAC for those refrigeration customers in EMS. And to have 2 divisions, have a service arm that can be reasonably dispatched. In other words, we want responsible coverage, and that's how we sell to our customers. Is responsible coverage, because our techs are 24/7, truly are 24/7.
Yeah.
And then we want EMS controls. I've got another idea on some of the control side. I think everything is, even HVAC, everything in 10, 15, 20 years, it's control heavy, period.
Oh, yeah.
And you would
especially
probably
commercials for sure, but commercial equipment and everything. But yeah, I mean, for
I think
sure.
it's there's so many things that we can attribute to how Oscar and I got to where we're at now. But the biggest thing is being a forward thinker and planning ahead. And it sounds like you guys have. I'm like blown away. I'm super proud of you guys. I'm getting like, I don't know, almost a little emotional for some reason. I don't know why my emotions are all over the place, but I didn't know you guys like that. We know from the trips, right? And even though those seem like tight, we're not spending a lot of time talking about business. We're on the beach and we're hanging out and swimming and
Trying
your
to
daughter
not
was
talk
at
about
this one. We
business.
don't want
Yeah.
to talk about business, right? Except for that check-in that we do with our teams. But you guys are doing some really incredible stuff, and I'm super proud of you guys. And I can't wait to see what that next 5 years looks like for you guys.
And I'm a fan. I mean, I think that trip truly was a catalyst for me to meet other business owners. And I think the competitive thing goes away once everybody's bled enough. And I think there's a turning point when you realize nothing is given to you in life. I want to always look forward and see that nothing can stop us if we're honest with our abilities, committed to growing where we're best at growing, committed to the focus and the discipline, and of just daily getting up and I'm gonna build another brick tomorrow. It's what I'm gonna do tomorrow. Is what 3 things can I accomplish tomorrow to put one more brick, and I'm going to build something I'm going to take it where it's never gone before, while honoring that I stand on the shoulders of some incredible people, and I'm going to do things differently. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do it better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I am most excited about, and I look for the opportunity to do that along other business owners where last generations would have seen them as competitors.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And obviously we're in a marketplace of competition. Like if you and I both were in the same, there's some reality to that.
There is
Right,
reality, but
right.
there's still room for relationships and friendship, and understanding that sometimes, what does it say? It's isolating at the top. Being the leader is not always fun. Being able to share what's happening in our lives, and humbly, and being vulnerable and sharing, man, this has happened this week, and you understanding that, people who are doing the same type of thing that we are, and they actually understand it. That's a really rewarding relationship, and that goes both ways. And so we have found that, there used to be a time that was we were joking earlier, we're going to ask you on here, what's the silver bullet? There's no silver bullet. There's, no matter what, there's the secret sauce is the owner and the management, the leadership, the
drive behind it.
That's creating the magic. That's the magic, right?
And I do think, I'll just interject. If there is a silver bullet, is how much am I committed to stay driven, to take care of myself physically, emotionally, spiritually, take care of myself, and make sure my family is taken care of. How driven am I to make the decisions on being comfortable with this is who we are and this is where I'm at, but then also the necessity that I have to have other people in my life that are doing similar things better than me. And I have zero problem admitting I have got a lot of holes on certain areas. It's not just I want to, for the sake of my future, I have to be around people that are doing something I'm not doing very well, much better. And I have to humbly say, how are you doing that?
Yeah. That's how some of the biggest corporations were built. The biggest companies were built was networking, learning from other people. And there's something that some of us we need to have that feeling of we can go out and do it better or different or whatever. But at the end of the day, everything started somewhere, and we owe it to ourselves to network and learn from each other.
Yeah, and I mean, even if we get large enough, to get boards to where there's a large chain here in town, a convenience store chain here in town, and they have a board. They're on their board is a large convenience store chain from the East Coast. They're same industry. They're just not competing against each other because they understand the way to only be competitive and relevant for the next 15 years is to make sure somebody in our industry that understands can point out what I'm not seeing in my forest.
100%.
And it's been very difficult for me to find those relationships because, one, they see themselves as a competitor or they are a competitor. Because like another refrigeration company, in the refrigeration world, we're actually quite small. Our companies are the world's largest. Our customers are the world's largest companies. Our competitors have been bought out by the world's largest private equities. And so we're like, who do I talk to?
Right. And then it's hard because are you going to spill the beans or spill your stuff to the wrong people, and then or are they going to use that and leverage that? And it's rough. It's tough out there. It really is. We feel it for sure. But being vulnerable, I think, has been a huge piece for us of just hey, I remember one time I have a friend, and she's actually my podcast host for the women's podcast that we do. But I remember exactly where I was driving, and I remember the stop sign I was at and exactly what I was doing whenever she was telling me something. And I said, wait, this is exactly what we're experiencing right now. But I felt alone because everyone's always told me that they were doing better at all these things. When the truth is that we all have the same types of issues, but we hide them and we only talk about the puppies and rainbows and the frilly things. And because no one wants to talk about cash flow sucking and this happening in a slow month and that and what insurance rates and all the
Or a
things.
slow quarter.
Or slow, a whole quarter. Like,
Yeah, we've had that before.
Quarter one.
I'll tell you, last year, I had the best quarter one that the company ever had. Some kid who married another girl had the best quarter in the company's history. We might have had the worst quarter in quarter four in the company's history.
Well, that's
same year.
And the same year. No, well, that's what, I mean, we were joking like quarter one in our industry in residential is always a rough.
Yes.
But we had the best January of 2024 that we had ever had. We were 200% to budget, like year over year. Okay. Or 200% year over year. The best quarter we had ever had. We rolled into February and you might as well just punched us and threw us in the river. Like and some of it was us, but most of it is the environment, the weather, all the things, right? But you can get humbled real quick.
You go from being on the mountaintop to trying not to drown
in 30 days, and you're just like, what?
That's how I describe it. I was talking to a friend. In not-for-profit world, you feel a bad decision or you feel a change of an environment, maybe in 6 months. When I say small business, I view myself small business as like 40 million and under, 50 million and under, and I just see myself as I'm still a small business at 40 million, and so. Or we're not 40 million yet, but I'm just saying that's how I kind of view it.
Right.
Like we're still a small business. And you can feel a bad decision in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cash flow wise, or you could feel it in 30 days, or you can feel change of environment, like November, December, the absolute most beautiful winter Oklahoma has ever had. Rack systems do not break down in beautiful weather in grocery stores.
Yes.
They love those weather, and I'm like, what do we do?
I mean, we're relying on that too. Of like, and it sucks because we want the pretty weather and we want to enjoy it for our personal lives, but we need it to not be great before the business.
It's helped me on like this quarter. So we're focused on, okay, then how do we structure our year around other lines of business? It's kind of forced us to go back to the drawing board on a couple things to prepare for.
To be better prepared.
Now watch, I'll prepare for it, and then we have such horrible weather, and I won't have the text to support it, and now I've got a whole other set of problems.
That's what'll happen. But if you prepare not to be weather dependent,
that's
as little
what I'm
as
trying
possible,
to say. Yeah.
Then you're always great, and then that way, if it is 110 every day this summer, we're all just like, well, we didn't need to worry about that other. But
right.
That's really hard in our industry as a whole to not be so focused on weather dependent and demand, because I've always said it to Cassie for years and years, like, if we could ever just figure out a way to be as busy as we are in the summer, in the winter, then we'd have it figured out. And, obviously there's all different kinds of strategies behind that, but it's like, that's really the key is that staying steady,
like, can we get a hard freeze like in December?
Yeah.
Or,
So, and I think that's been the difficult. You could do an entire episode, I think, on how do you not be so reactive in your business model to where, how can you make sure that your business model, you're controlling as much as you can control as possible. But the problem with that is it's really hard work.
Yeah, it is. But then there's so many things.
It's a constant grind. Yeah.
And there's so many things that you just can't control.
No,
you know.
And that's the other thing is, so I went to the trip this year, like figuring out how do I recover from the November and December, and I couldn't think about enjoying myself that whole trip. I was sitting there, and I had this moment of where I just kind of had this little moment of understanding about I've got to learn to sometimes sit in this knowing that I've gotten through 100 of these.
Yeah.
I've been through this before.
We forget to give ourselves grace.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I'm the worst, and like I beat myself up. It's my ADHD, but if I'm going to have a panic attack or stressed out or be like super overconsumed, like overthinking something, it's going to be at like 10, 11 o'clock at night when I should be going to bed. And I'm just like melting down, like mentally.
I pace the house too.
And then every time I'm like, and then he's like, what is wrong? And I'm like, okay, let me talk to you about this. And he's like, what are you wigging out about? Like, yes, obviously we need to be thinking, but and he's just as much involved in those things, but he's better at like seeing the long term and remembering that like we've got through this 100 million times, 100
Yes.
times, and this isn't going to be what breaks us. And we're not even in a spot to be completely broken. We've put up a lot of things to protect ourselves, but it's hard. And then like I said, we forget to give ourselves grace or allow ourselves to remember the times that we've gotten through it.
Yeah, that has been the most difficult part for me is I'm incredibly my best critic, because I know me pretty well. And I will beat up going, well, and then I also I cash in on pain that I don't need to in the future. Well, if this happens, then this will happen, then this will happen, then this will happen, and then this will happen, and then what will result is we'll be homeless, and and there'll be we will not we'll be in the street, and everyone will hate me because I will have to lay off all of them and their families. And then I started with one small minor problem that I can
so
fix.
Nate really is Cassie.
In the morning at the office. I can fix it, but not at 2 in the morning.
Not at 2.
In my kitchen.
And then the thing is at 5 o'clock or at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock at night, whenever I did think about it, I already had a plan.
Yes.
But at 10 o'clock at night, it's my mind and the devil attacking me and saying, no, you're wrong. You can't do that. You're not capable. None of that's going to work out. And it's just like, I feel like sometimes I get on down a whole rabbit hole of being spiritually attacked because, you just feel like all eyes are on you, all the pressure's on you. And it is. We talk about passion and stuff. And Oscar said a few times, like, no one feels the passion of your company like you do. And what he means by that, and like our team, I know that our team works hard for us and they love doing what they're doing and they do have the passion, but the burden is not theirs. And until you feel the burden, it's really hard for you to understand what we mean when we say that, because we know that you love this business as much as we do. And we know that you're working as hard as you do.
I guess it's
for the same
burden
thing
part of it that you could never, unless like you're another business owner with similar type burden, you never understand the burden of
what we're talking about.
of
Like
exactly what we're talking
and I think,
about,
And I think about, it's like when I place things on employees, I try to match, does the accountability I'm asking of them match the responsibility that I'm giving them? Or vice versa. Does the responsibility match the accountability I'm asking of them? It's the same way with owning a business. Like even now, like after I've been running this business for quite some time now, but not owning it. I have actually been paying the bills and doing everything an owner does, but there's a sense of feeling the risk versus knowing the risk, and then all of a sudden that risk is placed on your shoulders. And it's irresponsible for any leader to place that on and expect that responsibility on an employee that has no way of really feeling that.
Yeah.
Right.
So you should say, here's the amount of responsibility and accountability I'm asking of you, and I have to become comfortable with knowing you cannot nor should you understand what I'm going through, and I have to have peace with that.
Yeah.
And knowing that we're going to have a conversation together and work together.
Yeah.
But until you get in these shoes, there's things about them I don't understand too.
Right.
Yeah.
But they can't feel the risk. I think the burden is another way to say because we've got a lot of risk
Absolutely.
that we're taking
And
on.
like you said, you might have been paying the bills, but you were paying them and you were doing those things, but you weren't really, it wasn't totally yours at that point, right? And then immediately when it is, you're like, oh crap. Oh, and it sucks. And again, and then there's the piece of us that we don't talk about this with each other, or for a long time. I mean, we've surrounded ourselves with peers now that we can talk about these things now, and you definitely can't talk about it in your company.
No.
Because then it's like, oh my gosh, do I need to find a new job? Because and it's like, no. But because we do have budgets and we do have things that we have to accomplish and we do know our break even and we're doing this smarter than we've done before, we have to talk about it.
We do the same thing, basically, that even if you worked for another company or you worked in a totally different field, but you're an employee, right? You do the same thing on a personal level. You think, do I got enough money for this month? I'm trying to get this promotion. You got all the same stresses, but at a different level. But when you're an owner or when you're responsible for all of these things and these people, then you feel a different sense, but you also know that you can't convey every emotion and every part of that to your team, or they're going to be like, wow, these people are
This
flakes.
guy's a loose
You know,
cannon.
if I knew what went on in that person's head, like you can't walk in that morning and be like, I struggled all night whether or not we were even going to survive. They'd be like, what? You had some doubts?
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
exactly.
And obviously, you know, at the end of the day, I think that's what separates, you know, people from continuing to drive forward and continuing to grow and all of that is they let that doubt creep in. At some point, you got to say, all right, I made it through this crap before, and I'm going to push and get through it and push it down and keep fighting, you know?
Yeah, and I call it pragmatic optimism, meaning it's like I'm not going to be irresponsible, just be optimistic about everything.
Right.
I'm going to show up every day and be pragmatic. I'm going to look at the numbers. I'm going to look at our plan. I'm going to forecast the best I can with the plan. And then I'm going to say, well, and I'm going to plan as much as I can. And then I'm going to look at also the history. Like, I've been doing this long enough to know. And then I don't want to also communicate. I want to appropriately communicate crisis to our employees.
Right.
But I want to communicate crisis that they can fix.
Yeah.
And I think what causes unrest in the ranks is if you're giving them over crisis or trying to ask them to climb a ladder with no rungs on it.
Yeah.
So in other words, you're saying, I didn't know. And I have actually had this look in meetings before. So I admit I've done that before where you're
we
like,
all have.
I'm like, I don't know if we're going to be in business in a month. I didn't say that, but I had that look.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when you give that irresponsibly though to employees, it's irresponsible because not because you want them to have you're kind of relying on them to help get you there.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're giving them a ladder with no rungs on it, and or you're giving them a problem they can't solve because they can't go out. All they can do is be faithful to what you've hired them to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's irresponsible to ask them to say, "Well, give more," or fix my emotions.
Maybe it's better to present it as a challenge, and this is the challenges we're facing right now, and this is what we need to do, or let's get everybody's input on how we're going to overcome these. A challenge is a little different than, you know, we're got to start cutting cords, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
and also like what I'm getting better at in the last 2 years has been to say, okay, here's your responsibility for the next year. Even our techs, we have 90-day rocks. Here's your responsibility to help us get to our goals for this year. And if you are missing those responsibilities, we're going to have conversations about those responsibilities and how they have impacted our house that we're trying to build at the end of this year.
Yeah.
And can you envision that house at the end of this year? And if you can't, then that's what you need to come talk to me about. And I'm not asking you to do anything other than be an amazing tech and manage what I'm asking you to do.
Yeah.
And then if I'm going to come to you and say, we're falling short, I want to make sure that conversation is we're falling short in what the behaviors that you're doing, and I'm going to give solutions on what you can do, or I need solutions from you on what you can do to help us get to here. But I'll take the responsibility to make sure the whole house gets built. That's my job.
Yeah.
But you have a job on a part of this house too.
Yeah.
Right.
And let's partner together to get that built. That has been a relatively newer, I know it may sound like so simple, but that has been a newer addition to my quill, or a new quill, to say, I'm not going to ask them to take on an emotional responsibility of something that they really don't have, nor should they have.
Right.
But I want them to have the risk and feel it of what, if a tech doesn't bring in so much revenue at the end of the year, I want them to know at the beginning of the year what I'm expecting as a company. And if they can't, I'm going to, throughout the year, going to talk to them.
Yeah.
And then by the end of that year, we'll have a plan. But at some point, they're either with us building this house.
Yeah, because every truck has to produce revenue. Every every person has a job. And at the end of the day, we all want to be friends and buds and the relationships do mean things to us. And sometimes that's why it makes it harder to make the decisions that we have to. But at the end of the day, there's still things that have to be fulfilled for the ship to keep floating.
Yeah, and that's what I like to tell our people is everyone has a responsibility. You have my word that I will follow through on my word. In that my responsibility is, do you understand where we're going? Do you understand what we're trying to build? And have I had integrity in what I've promised you to do that? Because I am going to be friends with you whether you work here or not. I'm going to be nice. We're going to be cordial. There's a level of friendship always with different employees just by personality. But at some point, I'm paying you because it's not fun to come to work all the time. I'm inconveniencing you.
You're right.
So for that inconvenience.
We'd rather fish.
Yeah. For that inconvenience, I pay you.
Yeah.
And because I pay you, you do what I tell you.
Yeah,
to
you
do.
got to do it.
And that's the arrangement.
Yeah.
The friendship or that is transcendent of that because I'm a kind person or we actually kind of get along.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've told friends that we are friends. I don't want to, I would, if he was here, I would say it. But we had someone in finance to where I'm saying we're friends, but if you don't deliver on this one point, we will be friends as I walk you to the door.
Yeah.
Because I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to this organization.
Right.
And I'm not following through on my responsibilities to do that.
Well, and we always like remind ourselves too is like, this isn't about me and Oscar anymore. This is about the 60 people that work for Equality and their families.
Absolutely.
And so our responsibility is not to keep you here in this position because you're our bud or we knew you or whatever. Like the responsibility is we have to have the best person in that position because all these other lives are counting on us too.
Yeah, and you've got customers that are counting on you.
Right.
So you have really thousands of people
That
that
are
are
relying
relying on us to have integrity to our word, our vision of our company, and our brand. Well, like we could say it to our brand because that's really what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. I think we could chat forever. And I think that I love this conversation. This will probably end up in 2 episodes because we've gotten deep and all over the place. And, but I appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us and
Thank you for asking.
showing a different piece of the same industry that we're doing. Not even that really isn't even the same. It's just a different piece of the same license, maybe.
Yeah.
And doing good work, So, congratulations on the purchase and getting to do what you guys are doing. And we'll have to get Regina on sometime and do
Oh yeah,
a
she's
podcast
great.
with all 4 of us. So
Love that.
That'd be fun.
awesome. Well, thanks for stopping by and hanging
Absolutely.
out with us.
Thanks for having me.